They have confirmed to me that FBI teams have been back in Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood in the last couple of weeks, and they know who they are because several of the neighbors, have done interviews with the FBI. The same agents have come to their house several times to talk to them, so they know kind of who they're looking for. They know who these people are. They know that it's the same agents who were out there initially. And what's interesting is I'm told that the FBI agents were in an area kind of behind Nancy's house. And if you look at Google Earth here, you can see what I'm talking about. There's almost like I don't want to call it an alley, but that's kind of the first word that comes to mind. But there's like a dirt sort of driveway, but it's like a public, it's kind of like an alley that goes in an area sort of in the vicinity of the land behind Nancy's house. And one of the neighbors was telling me that she saw an FBI agent back in that area.
FBI agents are back behind Nancy Guthrie's house, and that alone should stop you in your tracks. Because 6 months after Nancy Guthrie vanished from her own home in Tucson, agents were spotted this month walking the same stretch of land behind her property. Neighbors recognized them. Some had been interviewed by these exact same agents before. This isn't a new team starting over. This is the original team going back. Here's the thing though. When investigators return to a spot they've already searched, it's not random. And in this case, there are two very real reasons they might be there.
One of the reasons I'm told could be because of the monsoons. There's been a lot of rain there this time of year. There's like little waterways that form this time of year that are not there at other times when it's not the rainy season. And so evidence could have been moved around, that kind of thing. I'm told that's one of the reasons they may have been looking back there. There's also the possibility that they think whoever did this may have left through the back. We know those back doors were propped open from what we've been told. So
the first is weather. Tucson just went through its monsoon season, and heavy rain changes a landscape. Waterways form where none existed before. Anything left behind, evidence, clothing, could shift with the water. Retired FBI agent Moreno Cannell, who spent decades in the Los Angeles field office, explained it simply. Water flows in predictable patterns. It pools at choke points. If there's fabric or clothing tied to Nancy's disappearance, those choke points are exactly where you'd look.
And also the monsoons. I was back in Tucson like a week ago, and there were like thunderstorms. Was it different than when I had been there last time? They have like thunderstorms in the summer and really, really heavy rains. When you're looking for evidence, I mean, could that impact things? Could that be a reason that they're going back out there?
Yeah, because water flows, downhill or in a relatively typical or in a way that you can anticipate. And there's often a choke point or an area where all that water will pool. It's a good place to go and look for evidence, especially if they're looking for clothing, if they knew what she was wearing or anything like that. So if it was a pink nightgown and they find a pink piece of cloth, it's worth looking into. It will also take a very vast area, and the water will cause whatever is on top to wash in one direction. That's basically what I was trying to say earlier. But so it is a good place. By a choke point, I mean it's an area where things come together. You can have a choke point when it comes to traffic. Like, for example, going in and out of Nancy's house, there's really only two choke points that, if you were to sit on surveillance or you'd be looking at those cameras, you'd be looking at these two different areas, that type of thing. So the evidence could be rolling in one direction, and that could be very beneficial to the team.
The second reason is harder to sit with. Investigators believe Nancy may have been taken out through the back of her house. We already know both doors near that area were found propped open. So if someone left that way, on foot, through brush and cactus in the dark, they left a trail.
And then if I walk this way, it's all, this is what the brush, that's actually R10 right there, but this is what the area behind Nancy's house looks like. So you can see there's a lot of brush, there's some power lines right above. Very, very dark here at night. And again, I'm gonna be careful of the rattlesnakes because everybody's been telling me that. But yeah, let me come around this side here. A lot of cactuses out here. I don't know what animals live in all these holes. There's little holes everywhere back here. But so this is the backside of Nancy's house here. So there's this so there's this little patio in the back, which we've seen from the drone. There's this door here, which again, initially thought there was a sliding glass door. It's not a sliding glass door. There's this just regular door with like glass panes on the top. So that's on one side of the overhang. You can see where there's the glass window here, which a lot of people thought was a sliding glass door. It's really a beautiful backyard. And then there's another door with a screen right here on this edge of on this side of the outdoor area. I'm told that that screen was propped open. And then in the Savannah interview, she said that that doors, plural, were propped open. But I'm told that that screen right there was propped open. So this is the outdoor area here in the back. Again, it's really just a beautiful house. I keep thinking about the fact that she lived here since the 1970s and all the memories that Savannah must have in the backyard. And then there's this is the casita over here. And there's obviously, you can't really see it through the brush, there's obviously a door into the casita, which is like the little guest house, which is next door. So, and again, I have permission to be back here. It is kind of weird being in the back. I'm not really in her backyard, I'm in someone else's backyard, but it's just strange to get this vantage point from the back. And again, this is what it looks like. There's just a ton of like wooded area back here. That you can walk through. There's like little trails. It's not like in Florida where there's swamp or there's forest. It's really thick. It's hard to get through. I mean, you can walk around back here. You will see a ton of cactuses and you could stick yourself. I mean, everything has thorns out here.
Maybe a small one, but 6 months later, agents are still looking for it. Now here's where it gets interesting. A Wall Street Journal investigation published recently confirmed something that had circulated for months, but this time backed by documented reporting. When deputies first arrived at the scene, they reportedly believed the blood found near the front of the house was old, dried, possibly from a prior nosebleed, not connected to anything urgent.
I thought of you the other day when that Wall Street Journal story came out, that deep dive into the investigation. And a lot of it, I would say like 80% of it was stuff that you and I had talked about, that we heard about and figured out kind of early on, and they were just kind of going back through it all again. But there were a couple new things that stood out to me that I didn't know. And one, the thing that made me think of you, because we talked so much about the blood that was found in the front, is the Wall Street Journal reported that initially the deputies who responded thought that it was old blood, like thought that Nancy had had a nosebleed, and that it was like dried blood and that it had nothing to do with her disappearance, that it was like from another event, an innocent event. I don't know why that really stuck with me, because it was so much blood. Like, I guess I'm just trying to get into the mind of an investigator. If you showed up out there, wouldn't you have thought that it was like something that may have had to do with her being gone?
Well, when you consider that they haven't had any kidnappings or murders in a very, very, very long time, and I think whatever that number was, over 90% of calls like this end up being someone that just walked off, especially when she's an elderly person. But once the other stuff started coming together, so I could see initially that they would be like, this could be something else, because with all that cacti around her, she could easily get cut. She was on blood thinners. You can bleed like you can't believe when you're in that type of situation. However, when you start adding together the other things that were unfolding in real time, like the information from the family, if in fact the family told her, I mean, we heard Savannah say that her mom could barely make it to the down to the mailbox, but are we sure that Tommaso and Annie said that to the police? If they said that to the police, and that's in their written statements, and that's something that will hopefully eventually come out, then yeah, now it's starting to build. Then you get to the back door, and then you see the two potted plants and the doors propped open. Now it's to every ratchet this up one notch, one notch, one notch. Then her car's there. Then you see that her Apple Watch is at the end of the bed, and you know, her bed isn't made. Does she often leave the house without making her bed? The answer is no. So you see these things just start to build and build and build. And it should have happened in relatively quick succession that they said, you know what? Something's going on here. At that point, they should have put up the yellow tape in a very large area.
Think about that for a second. An 84-year-old woman is missing from her home, and the working theory in those first hours was that it might not even be a crime. And look, statistically, that instinct isn't as strange as it sounds. Connell pointed out that the overwhelming majority of missing elderly person calls turn out to be someone who simply wandered off. It happens more than people realize. But once you start stacking details one on top of another, the picture changes fast. The car left behind. The Apple Watch found at the end of an unmade bed in a house where, according to family, the bed was never left unmade. The potted plants near the door that was propped open. Each detail on its own means very little. Together, they build a timeline that should have triggered a much faster response.
We're also hearing now that there's some new people coming into the investigation, new detectives being cycled in, a fresh set of eyes. You and I were texting about that the other day. Is that important? I mean, when you're working on an investigation, and from what I've been told, unfortunately, they've made progress because they're going through the tips, but I don't think they're right now any closer to a specific person or anything like that. Can that be helpful when you get just someone brand new that comes in with a fresh set of eyes, or can that be frustrating if you're already working on the case because it's someone who doesn't know anything?
Both. But the fact of the matter is, like, even in the FBI, probably especially in the FBI, because we rotate around a lot. So you end up, when a person rotates off your squad, they divvy up those cases amongst the other investigators on that squad. So you'll end up with an old case. You always have at least one old, what we would call like an old dog, where this case, and it wouldn't be something like this. I think something like this is unique in that your whole office potentially could be focused on this. Could be trying to help with this. So could it be frustrating? Yes. Is it good to have a new set of eyes? Yes, because new people have new skill sets. You might be a guy that's really good at electronics. You might be someone that's unbelievable at, like, if you work narcotics and stuff, like some of these detectives have. These narcotics guys are scrappers. I worked narcotics for many, many years here in Los Angeles. They're some of the most resourceful detectives you can find, and they are dogged detectives. So if you get a guy like that who's got street smarts, street savvy, he's a scrapper, he's a go-getter, he's a honey badger. I mean, and then you put him with someone that's just a technological genius, God only knows what you're going to come up with, but hopefully it's going to be something good. And as far as not knowing who the person is, they may very well have a really solid idea who the perpetrator or perpetrators are, but without enough evidence to actually put them away, you have to keep your mouth shut about it. You can't run your mouth. Those days are gone.
What do you mean by run your mouth?
I mean, as a law enforcement agency, you can't say so-and-so is a person of interest and we think that this is the case for the following reasons. You're just going to get sued.
And that's the quiet, uncomfortable part of this story. I want to slow down here for a second, because this next part isn't about theories or evidence markers. It's about what should have happened and didn't. According to Connell, once investigators suspect foul play, the scene should be locked down immediately and expanded, not narrowed. Tire tracks preserved. Shoe impressions protected. The entire perimeter treated like it matters, because it does. Instead, by multiple accounts, people continued walking through the driveway. Cars kept coming and going. The scene wasn't fully secured for days. FBI Director Kash Patel has publicly acknowledged that federal investigators weren't brought in immediately, that there was a delay before the FBI became directly involved in processing the scene. Connell's assessment is blunt. If this had been treated as a federal case from the first hour, physical evidence, the pots, the door hardware, the map by that back door would likely have been preserved differently, maybe even removed and tested right away. Instead, that window may have closed before anyone realized how much was at stake.
And just last question I have, with the crime scene issues and the issues that you and I talked about in the beginning, and it seems like everybody I talked to from the FBI, especially from LA, is like, "Oh, Maureen was the crime. She was the best at the crime scene stuff." Like everybody says that was your
Yeah.
thing, you know? Steve
I
Kramer
love
was telling me
I
that the
love
other
the
day.
crime scene stuff, but we had a really good team. I
Yeah.
was part of a team and I was very lucky to be part of that team.
Do you think us being in this place now more than 6 months later, where things feel like they're at a bit of a standstill, goes back to mistakes made with the crime scene and the way that it was processed before the FBI? Because you've heard Kash Patel bring up that they didn't come in for days. I mean, do these issues now all go back to the way it was processed initially?
Possibly. I mean, the crime scene, if it was an FBI case initially and we saw that she was likely removed from the front of that house, but intended to go out the back of the house, those pots would have been gone, that door handles would have probably been gone, that mat would have 100% been gone. Our crime scene yellow tape would have been the street would have been blocked off because we would be looking for tire impressions and shoe impressions, even though the original deputies pulled up because they thought it was a walkaway. As I said, over 90% of these cases are, well over 90, I would guess. And you can still work if you had one or two cars up there. You could still at this point say, whoa, 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 let's hold the phone. Tell our guys, get traffic control, our traffic guys out here, cut off this street, put up the crime scene tape. They all have crime scene tape rolls in their trunk. Everybody does. Most people do. And just lock that whole area down. That circle drive in front should have not been accessible. There should not have been cars on that. There should not have been more cars. You could leave the ones that were there for now until you do a thorough examination of the entire driveway all the way back to the casita. You're looking for shoe impressions in the dirt or in the sand or the soil or whatever that substrate is that you have. You're looking very closely, and I mean very closely, with oblique lighting and everything else, trying to find any shoe impressions, tire impressions, any evidence that people were walking around, any crushed grass below any window on the entire circumference of the residence. You're looking for any broken glass, which I'm sure the initial deputies did, but this all has to be done by the crime scene team. And when they get there, when the crime scene team shows up, we generally get briefed by whoever the detective is or the lead person on scene, and they'll say, hey, you know what, on the north side of the building, we saw something that looks like someone had been standing in this area for a while. Go look and see if you find a cigarette butt, or not that many people smoke anymore, but I still see people smoking a lot. So that's my thought on that. So the crime scene should have been 15 times bigger than it was. And people should have been directed, and I told you this early on. When your scene looks like this scene, we've talked before about how hard it is to collapse a scene, and that's why you want it bigger initially. You can always make it smaller as you go on, as days go by. But the other thing you want to do is to create an access and egress pathway that's opposite or in an area where we're not looking for shoe impressions. We're not looking for tire impressions. So it would be like if you're standing out on the street like you did for so long and you're looking at Nancy's house, and here's the driveway with the casita on the right, and here's the circle drive right in front of you. What I would have done as the team leader is we would have created a path on the left side of the property and walk almost up the property line into a place where we deemed was least likely to be part of the crime scene.
Yeah, and the FBI did do that, but it was just days and days later after it had been opened back up. I remember seeing them do that thing where they all walked in a straight line. It just wasn't right away.
So here's the unanswered question hanging over all of this. Did early missteps at the scene cost investigators evidence they can never get back? Now, 6 months in, something else happened that caught the attention of people who study exactly this kind of case. On the 6-month anniversary, both a sheriff's office and Savannah Guthrie herself released statements Almost simultaneously after months of near silence, retired FBI profiler Jim Fitzgerald has said publicly, well, before this happened, that investigators often watch for specific behavioral shifts around anniversaries like this one. Fitzgerald noted the guidance released by the sheriff's office lined up closely with patterns he'd been describing for months.
Do you think like the 6 month mark? It seemed like a lot kind of happened within a week. You
It
had the
really
note,
did.
yeah, the note. It was so quiet for a while, and then you had the reporter who released the notes. Then you had Savannah put out two messages, the video message and then the written message, and then you had the sheriff put out his copy of the notes, the actual notes we saw, and then sort of the ideas for what people should look for. Do you, just with all your expertise, Maureen, do you feel like we're in a moment right now? Like, are they going to drum
I do.
something up?
I do. I really do. And it's interesting because, as you know, Jim Fitzgerald, the retired FBI profiler and forensic linguistics expert, he has been saying from the beginning that these are the pre-incident indicators you may have seen. This is the post-incident behavior um, that you'd likely see in a situation like this. Jim Clemente was saying the exact same thing. They were in lockstep, those two. And those two have unbelievable experience in violent crime. So I felt I was wondering why, and I even said this on your show very early on. Why is the FBI not putting out a profile? They've done it for so many big cases, and it's been very, very helpful in the past. And lo and behold, when these notes came out on the 6 month anniversary, as you just mentioned, they came out with what appeared to be pretty much an identical set of marching orders that Fitz told us about a long time ago, where he said exactly what you should be looking for. Will this person change their appearance? Did they change their appearance shortly after Nancy disappeared? Did they leave town unexpectedly for a made up emergency or something that couldn't be verified easily? Were they obsessed with the whole Nancy Guthrie story? But I would say there's a lot of your viewers are obsessed with this case, as I think you and I are, because it's just a real head scratcher.
Yeah, and you're right. And so much of what people are talking about now are things, I mean, not to give us a pat on the back, but are things we talked about so much like in the first couple of months. And you mentioned Fitz. I mean, he did give this specific, he really wanted to do that episode too, where he gave a specific
Yep.
list of what people could be looking out for, which is now essentially what the sheriff put out 6 months later. I thought the one was interesting, and I can't remember exactly the way it was worded, but it was like someone who's talking about the Nancy Guthrie investigation a lot, or specifically avoiding talking about it, which would be kind of true if you knew someone and like they didn't, and you were already kind of suspicious and they never wanted to talk about Nancy Guthrie. I guess that would be kind of a
Right.
telltale sign.
Or you could see that guilty look on their face when you start talking about it and they just kind of turn away and I'll see you later or whatever. Why are they getting so nervous?
And Savannah's message stood out to more than just the profilers.
I believe it was either on your show or on one I was on with him, but he said that he does not believe that the BAU currently has a forensic linguist on board, which I was actually shocked by that statement. I didn't see it get much play, but did that interest you? Did you notice that?
I didn't hear that until you told me. But I mean, it seems kind of surprising. I mean, you were in the FBI for decades. Like, why wouldn't they? Wouldn't you expect that they would?
Because you could see, or I can imagine, a number of different cases where having a forensic linguist would just be a brilliant tool in your toolbox and one that you might use in a number of different areas. So to hear that they may not have one on board, I found that very interesting. And he's mentored a lot of those people that are there now, as has Jim Clemente.
Yeah, and we had Fitz's wife on, Natalie,
Natalie,
the
I love
forensic.
her.
Yeah, she was great. It was so
She's
interesting the things
wonderful.
she found in the notes, like the sentence structure and the commas, things that I would have never known. And she really believes that they're written by the same person based
Yeah.
on when she does that deep dive into the grammar. And when she showed me where the commas were, they were in similar places in both notes.
One line in particular, "We've done our part," struck several people close to the case as unusually specific. Cannell was careful here, and I want to be careful too, because we don't actually know what conversations happened behind closed doors. But her read, based on decades of working cases like this, was that the wording sounded like was directed at someone in particular, not the public, someone who already knew what it meant.
Savannah was, and she was saying, all right, we're done here. You got what you wanted. You got me basically just crushed and broken. So, the main thing about the other thing that really struck me was that opening line where she said, we've done our part. And I was like, the only thing that makes sense to me is that there was some deal that happened that we didn't know about where the family did in fact pay, maybe to find out where Nancy's remains are. And they got the money and now they've gone quiet.
That's a theory. Not a confirmed fact, but it's the kind of detail that makes you sit up. Here's what I keep coming back to. Somewhere out there, someone knows something. Maybe it's a small detail that doesn't feel important. Maybe it's something they've been sitting on for 6 months because they're scared or unsure or just don't want to get involved. But Cannell said something that stuck with me. It only takes one tip, one phone call. One person deciding today is the day they finally say something. Nancy Guthrie lived in that house since the 1970s. She has a family still waiting for answers, still showing up publicly, even when it clearly costs them something to do it. And the people who are supposed to have those answers are still walking that same stretch of land behind her house 6 months later, looking for something they haven't found yet. So I'll ask you the same thing I keep asking myself. If the first hours of this investigation had gone differently, would we already know what happened to Nancy Guthrie? And if you know something, anything, why haven't you called it in yet?
And so I'll stay on top of it if there's any new developments. I'm still hoping, as I said with Maureen, that this 6-month mark will sort of revitalize some interest in the case, that perhaps someone who knows something will be, urged to come forward, will feel like it's the right thing, because all it takes is really one tip to break this thing wide open. And I'm hoping that will happen soon, especially for Savannah and her family. So if anyone has any information, as always, call 1-800-CALL-FBI. I'm going to be on the road this week working on a couple of other stories, a couple of interesting ones I've been looking into, but I've been talking to my sources constantly when it comes to Nancy's case, and I'm obviously not sometimes I get emails from you guys like, please don't move on, like stay on it, and I am staying on, even though I don't do episodes every day. Trust me, the way I kind of work is I check in with my people every day or every other day just to see if there's anything new, make sure I'm not missing anything. So if anything happens, I'll make sure to let you guys know. And as always, appreciate you guys for watching, appreciate everybody for subscribing, and I'll talk to you guys later.